Hey there everyone and welcome to Rabona TV. I'm Adrian and thank you for joining me. The semifinals, they're set. We'll talk all about those probably next week in depth because this week we're mourning those who we lost. Dortmund, Liverpool, FC Porto, and the defending champions, Bayern Munich. Let's start with Liverpool. Liverpool were against it, weren't they? I mean, it wasn't an impossible task. A 2-0 win would have sufficed, but with this iteration of Liverpool, it didn't seem very likely. That said, Liverpool really could have got started on the right foot when they put Thibaut Courtois to work after just a few minutes. A great passage of play from Liverpool, who started the match quite well. Got that chance being the apex of their opening exchanges, really. But because other than that, Real Madrid defended pretty well with their second choice center backs of Militao and Nacho, while Fede Valverde was certainly, I guess you could call him a weak point at the back when it came to his defensive duties at least, but did a serviceable job still. Benzema came close at one point when his deflected pass bounced off of the post, but other than that, Real didn't really offer much going forward. Happy to focus on protecting their lead and perhaps looking a bit tired on the pitch at times. With a thin squad due to injuries, an aging squad in the middle of the park, it was always going to be a possibility. And at the half, it felt like if Liverpool could continue to stretch this match, the Real Madrid may just gas out and be there for the taking, but it never happened. Sure, Liverpool had a couple of decent opportunities in the first half from Salah, mainly, though Wijnaldum should have hit the target when he had an opportunity in the box, and Milner forced a save out of Courtois from outside of the box. But in the second half, with the Real sitting deep, Casemiro was often dropping between the two center backs, splitting the center backs, and Modric and Kroos were dropping deep as well. Everyone was dropping deep. Asensio was dropping back and they were just looking to hit them on the counter. And once again, it was Vinicius who nearly ended the tie for Real Madrid when he was in clear, but the ball was just out of reach for him as Alisson read it really well and came flying out of his goal and then stopped Benzema right after that. It was almost like a double save. So, no goals to speak of in this one as Liverpool lacked any sort of firepower. I do question why Jota and Thiago weren't started. Both bring so much to this Liverpool side that the inclusions of Milner, take your pick of Firmino or Mane. Mane had a terrible game. I feel like Thiago and Jota could have given them a chance in this stead of those other players, but I don't know. A man much smarter than me could probably explain why they only featured in the last 30 minutes of this one. So Zidane has done it again as he is yet to lose to Jurgen Klopp from the 3 matches they have played against each other. In fact, Real Madrid hasn't lost to Liverpool since 2009 when Liverpool smacked them up. But since then, Liverpool have lost 4 and drawn once. Real Madrid, you really can't sleep on them, can you? The ties involving the German clubs were delicately poised, weren't they? This one more than the Bayern versus PSG tie, just on the account of, Dortmund getting an away goal and bringing that home to Signal Iduna Park, whereas Bayern conceded 3 away goals. And maybe if there were fans in the stands for Borussia Dortmund, it would have been much more of a terrifying prospect for Manchester City. Staring down the barrel of 25,000 strong in the South Stand alone. Maybe that would have been enough to push this Dortmund side a bit further, but this was calm and controlled from Manchester City. Well, not completely, as the opening 20 minutes or so were actually dominated by Borussia Dortmund. They needed a fast start. Surely that would have been on the cards. That would have been their game plan. Try and sucker punch City before they can collect themselves. And it worked. The starlet that is Jude Bellingham, a guy who doesn't turn 18 until the end of June, and who seemingly excels in defense and in the attack, hit a lovely strike from the edge of the box that Ederson could only get a piece of as it flew into the top corner. With that goal, he became the 8th youngest Champions League goal scorer of all time, the 2nd youngest in the knockout phase of the competition. But like I was saying, following that goal, it felt like with every attack, Manchester City were threatening to score. De Bruyne hitting the post, ferocious strike off of the bar. Mahrez having his strike from 6 yards blocked by Jude Bellingham on the line. There was an onslaught from City to close out the half, with the score on aggregate at 2-2. As things stood, Dortmund were going through. But in the second half, City were awarded a penalty when Emre Can headed the ball off of his own arm, which I thought when the ball takes a deflection off of your own body, it can't be given. But that may just be for unexpected deflections, and since it was a deliberate header onto his own arm, perhaps that's why it was given. If a player fires the ball at you and it goes off of your knee and off of your arm, not given as a penalty. But if you have your arm out like this and you head the ball onto your arm, I can see why it's given. Anyway, an unfortunate penalty That Mahrez slammed past Marvin Hitz. What a strike it was. I mean, Hitz guessed the right way, but couldn't do anything to stop that. Hummels later had a header that just looped over the bar. So close for Dortmund. De Bruyne came close once again as he just oozed class in this match, didn't he? And from a corner kick, Phil Foden, another one of the generational talents, smashed one low and hard and close enough to the post that Hitz couldn't keep it out. City win 4-2 on aggregate. And they break the quarterfinals curse under Pep Guardiola. They finally done it. Guardiola is back in the Champions League semifinals for the first time since 2016, when he was in his final season with Bayern Munich. In fact, he only failed to make it to the Champions League semifinals once he came to City. Otherwise, at Bayern and Borussia Dortmund, they wish. Bayern and Barcelona, he made it at least as far as the semifinals every single season. We got the window open, we got fresh air, we got birds singing, and we got PSG versus Bayern. The defending champions have been eliminated on away goals. And while the score was close when it comes to this match in particular, and the tie in general, I guess, the quality opportunities were heavily in favor of PSG. I mean, they nearly scored a goal in under 3 or 4 minutes, once again, as Mbappe rolled one wide of Neuer, something he did on a couple of occasions in this match, as his finishing, like that of his teammates, wasn't quite on. Mbappe, by the way, was also unlucky to get called offside when he was clearly onside and would have been in through on Neuer. But anyways, while Bayern were tenacious, you could just tell that they were lacking going forward, beyond the obvious part of missing Lewandowski, Gnabry, and Goretzka. I mean, apologies to those I'm about to mention, but when you saw the end of the match and they were desperately lobbing balls forward to Javi Martinez, 18-year-old Jamal Musiala, and Coman, and Leroy Sané, who just did not have an end product in this match, not great. In the first half alone, PSG should have had a few goals. There were those that rolled wide from Mbappe, as I mentioned. Then there was Neymar, hitting the woodwork on 2 occasions, who again, by the way, was probably the best player on the pitch. Guy hit the woodwork twice in a couple of minutes. The first one he conjured out of nothing to be Coman and curl a strike toward the top corner that bounced off of the crossbar. And the other came courtesy of a Davies mistake to give up possession, ending with Neymar rolling the ball past Neuer and off of the post. Wouldn't you know it? Bayern went in the other direction and scored from that post. They scored a scrambly goal from Choupo-Moting, 2 from him in 2 legs against his former side. So would you say that Choupo-Moting was poor? I don't think so. He was serviceable, but he doesn't add nearly as much as Lewandowski would in the build-up for Bayern, in linking with his teammates and creating space for them, working off of Müller. I mean, it was glaringly obvious. Not that anyone was surprised about that being the outcome of losing Lewandowski, but there was also times when the ball was played across the box and just Choupo-Moting wasn't there to meet it. But beyond Bayern's failings, which we have talked about in the attack, the midfield was far too easy to bypass for PSG, which was sort of surprising. And with Davies pushing forward and not having anything near his best match, I mean, as much as it hurts me to say, it was a match to forget for my Canadian boy. It was all too easy going forward for PSG. On another day, they would have scored 3-4 goals against Bayern. At the other end of the pitch is where PSG impressed me a ton. They were without Marquinhos and lost Diallo partway through the second half, and yet they were solid defensively still. Most of Bayern's shots that made it on target were from distance, as PSG's shape was fantastic in this game. Kimpembe and Danilo are a solid partnership in a pinch. You know, it's not even their first choice. While Dagba was incredible down that flank, and arguably some of the best defending in this match, however, came from Idrissa Gueye, or Ghana as he goes by on his shirt. Paredes, he dropped and did well defensively also, as both central midfielders would drop to the flank to help the fullbacks out, and they just became impenetrable at times. Ultimately, PSG were very much deserving of their place in the semifinals. Maybe a different story if Lewandowski was there, but don't discount PSG too much just because Lewandowski wasn't there. It was great performances from them, defensively solid, and with a player like Neymar in this sort of form, I mean, just imagine this Neymar. A Neymar in this sort of form that finds his finishing touch. Oh my gosh. PSG are going to be a lethal side. Chelsea versus Porto was another match of very, very few opportunities for either side from the Sanchez Pizjuan in Seville. I mean, last week we saw Chelsea win 2-0 with 3 shots on target. You know? In this match, it was largely the same thing. It was the same sort of story as far as how tight it was. I feel bad that I don't have a ton to say about these Porto and Chelsea matches, but they didn't provide a lot because they were largely defensive stalemates. And based off of the way Porto sets up, typically, in their 4-4-2 double pivot, and with how Tuchel has had Chelsea playing, solid defensively and struggling in the attack, 0 shots on target in the first half for either side. Things improved a bit for Porto once Taremi came on in the second half. I mean, they looked a bit more threatening as they went to search for a goal, but their opportunities really dried up. So it was a situation where when they went forward, they had a bit more bite. In the rare times they carved out a chance, but they rarely carved them out because Chelsea were just sitting so deep and frustrating the hell out of them. In fact, it was Chelsea who looked the better team going forward in the second, as Havertz, Mount, and Pulisic began generating opportunities for Chelsea and perhaps should have scored one themselves to really make things comfortable. But it was Taremi who got a goal from nothing for Porto late in stoppage time. A stunner, one of the goals of this Champions League season for sure. The ball was played into the box from Nanu, and Taremi hit a beautiful overhead kick into the top corner. As this comment put it, it was the saddest overhead kick of my career. Unfortunately, it meant nothing, and Porto would have needed, 2 more goals in order to advance. So yeah, a 1-0 win for Porto on the night, but they ultimately lose 2-1 to Chelsea over the 2 legs. Chelsea are an interesting team at this point. You wonder how they would have done drawn up against a stronger team or even a stronger version of Porto. But they still controlled the tie fairly well. More theatrics from Conceição and the boys. That image of Pep screaming in Tuchel's face. Oh my god. They're always entertaining, those Porto boys. Especially Conceição during the post-match. The man gets into a beef with every manager. The guy could get into a beef with a corner flag. I swear. But it was a good run for Porto. They did well during the Champions League season, but perhaps another year when they have more firepower, they can go a bit further and cause an upset. Speaking of which, will Adrian be upset tomorrow as he reviews how his picks did? Will he cry on camera? Surely he couldn't have done worse than the round of 16 picks. You'll have to see. But before then, I want to thank you guys once again for taking the time to watch this video. Thanks for joining me for the watch-alongs this week, and thank you for subscribing if you're new. I'm Adrian, and I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.